Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back. Today I'm going to be making pasta with some stuff I had around the house. I've got my water coming up to a boil in the back there, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the rest of my ingredients in this large skillet I got. First things in are going to be the fats. I'm going in with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and then maybe about half a tablespoon of butter. And then in this fat, I'm going to slowly toast some spices and aromatics. So here I got some crushed red pepper. And then I'm also going to add some black pepper in there. And then finally some garlic. I got 5 cloves of garlic that I'm going to mince up here. Some more traditional recipes would probably have you slice this garlic up, but then you have to keep the cloves completely intact while you try to peel them. And I don't feel like taking the time to do that, so I'm just going to mince it up. So with all of that stuff in the pan now, I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat on to high until everything kind of starts sizzling, and then I'll back it back down. And I'm also going to season my pasta water. I'm not going to salt this quite as aggressively as I otherwise would sometimes, and you'll see why later. So with everything going at this point, I'm going to take care of my last couple ingredients. The first of which is going to be some Parmesan that I'm going to shred up on a microplane here. And then I've also got some green onions. Normally I would just use the greens of the green onions and save the whites for something else, but these green onions that I have here today are pretty thin and don't have a ton of white on them, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the whole thing. I am going to cut them on a bias a little bit just to make them look a little bit more fancy. Okay, checking back in on my aromatics, and they are sizzling away here, so I'm going to turn the heat all the way down to low and just let them coast along a little while longer. I'm not really trying to develop any color on anything there necessarily. I'm mostly just trying to soften everything and then infuse that fat with the flavors from the aromatics themselves. So here I can kind of start to see that I'm getting a little bit of color on things, so I'm going to go ahead and shut the heat off and just hold that stuff on standby for now. Meanwhile, my water is at not too vigorous of a boil, but it's hot enough, so I'm going to go ahead and put the pasta in. I'm doing 2 portions today, so I'm going to do about half this box of spaghetti that I got. It doesn't all fit underwater yet, so for the next 30 seconds or so, I'm just going to stand here and sort of gently nudge things along as the pasta starts to soften so that I can get it all submerged. Now that it's all in, I'm going to start testing this pasta at around the 5-minute mark. With this style of pasta dish, since the pasta is going to finish cooking in the sauce, you really want to pull it out of the water well before it's al dente, or what you consider finished. And it's better to err on the side of caution with that because you don't want it to overcook in the sauce later. So here I'm about 5 or 6 minutes in, giving it a taste, and the pasta's definitely not done. It's still crunchy in the middle, but at this point, that's good. So I'm going to turn my pan of oil and aromatics back on the heat, and I'm going to give that about 30 seconds to come back up to temperature. And then once that happens, I'm going to go ahead and shut the heat off on my boiling pasta and then transfer it into the pan with the aromatics. I'm not going to drain the pasta as I do this. I'm just going to lift it out of the water and then put it in the pan with whatever water comes with it. I'm also going to give the pan a little bit of a shake at this point, mostly just to keep things from sticking. Now that the pasta's in the pan, I'm going to start with about half a cup of that pasta water. I pulled this pasta pretty early, so I know this water in here is going to have a good amount of time to reduce before the pasta's done. So I'm going to start with about half a cup. All right, now I'm going to start aggressively shaking and stirring this pan, and I mean really aggressively. The goal here is to get the fat and the pasta water to emulsify. And in order to get that to happen, you have to shake the pan really aggressively, agitate it constantly, get it moving, whatever you gotta do. So one of the main rules of making pasta like this is the first few times you do it, don't be afraid to make a mess. The mess is fine, you can clean it up later, but this is what you gotta do to make pasta in this style. My sauce is just about where I want it at this point, so I'm gonna give the pasta a taste, and it needs a little bit more time. I can tell it's just a little bit shy of al dente, so I'm gonna add a little bit more of my pasta cooking water so that I can keep this going a little while longer. This is one of the main reasons that I don't like to over salt my water in advance. It gives you a lot less flexibility at this point to add water as needed to get the pasta to the correct level of doneness. This is also why I like to pull the pasta out of the water well shy of al dente when I put it into the sauce, because I find that when you do more of the cooking in the sauce, it leads to less guesswork down the line. It's easier to nail the right level of doneness on the pasta. So I'm going to continue on tossing and stirring my pasta until the water evaporates off again and gets the sauce to the right consistency. I want the sauce at this point to be nice and creamy and a little bit on the loose side because, one, this is going to tighten up a little bit as it cools down, you get it in the plate, and two, we're going to add cheese to it, so that's going to tighten it up a little bit as well. So that looks good there. I'm going to give it a taste, and that tastes good to me, so I'm going to go in with the rest of my ingredients. First, I'm going to put in about 2/3 of my green onions. I'm going to make sure I get the white parts too, so those get a little bit of heat. And then I'm going to put in, again, about 2/3, maybe 3/4 of my Parmesan cheese, and this is off heat now. You always want to add your cheese off heat because if you do it on heat, then your cheese could split and then your sauce would become grainy. So I'm going to give those one last stir to combine and then give it a taste for seasoning. And I think here I decided it did need a little bit more salt, so I'm going to add a pinch of salt, stir that in, and then call it done. You can see there how much tighter the sauce is now compared to when we shut the heat off. So that's a good illustration as to why we want it on the looser side when we do actually shut the heat off. It's going to tighten up a lot. All right, now we got it in the bowl. Just gonna top it off with the remaining green onions and Parmesan cheese, really just to make it look nice. And there you have it, a really good bowl of pasta that I made in like 20 minutes with stuff that I pretty much always have around the house. The technique does take a little bit of practice to get down, to get the timings correct on everything and all that. But once you get it, it's pretty easy and it's pretty quick to pull together. So hopefully you give it a try soon. Thanks.